Our guest in the second half hour is Jeff Torborg, and Jeff, of course, a Jersey guy like I am, and I've known him for a long, long period of time, and he holds some very, very distinguished letters of recommendation. I mean, first of all, he caught 3 no-hitters, which and was one of the first ones to catch a no-hitter in both leagues. And, Jeff, first of all, welcome to the show. And what I'd like to do, you and I chat a little bit, I'd like to start off out of sequence and talk about July 20th, 1990, or 1970, when Bill Singer, you caught Bill Singer, and you not only caught a no-hitter, but you broke an unwritten rule in baseball.
Yeah, well, I was, as you could probably understand listening to Don's introduction, I was a no-hit catcher in more ways than one, believe me. That game that you're talking about, Bill Singer's against the Phillies, and that was an interesting game. It ended up with a pop-up right in front of the Philly dugout, and Don Money let the lidded bat drop on the on-deck circle, and I tripped over it. And on the way, and all I could think of was Yogi Berra back in 1952 catching a no-hitter by Allie Reynolds, dropped a pop-up that, of all people, Ted Williams hit as the last hitter. Dropped a pop-up. They went back and threw the same pitch to him, and he popped it up again, and he caught it. Yogi caught it. But years later, I was in Yogi Berra's and Allie Reynolds' company, and Yogi said, he spiked me on that second one because he was mad at me dropping the first one. And so, baseball stories, I don't know whether they grow later on or not, but that was interesting. We got laughing about that one.
Tell us a little bit about the fifth inning of that game of the no-hitter, because as you and I chat, nobody ever mentioned no-hitters. When, it got to the 7th or 8th or 9th inning, nobody on the air, whether they're broadcasters, television broadcasters, they never mentioned that a no-hitter was being pitched. You broke that tradition back in 1970.
Well, that's interesting. When I before that, I caught a perfect game of Sandy Koufax, in all Sandy anyway, so I was definitely not going to speak to him in the dugout, which was the tradition in those days, as you mentioned, on the air as well as in the dugout. Nobody spoke to the pitcher when he had a no-hitter going. Well, obviously, I didn't speak to Sandy, but Bill Singer's coming later would have been my second one, and I felt comfortable knowing, what we were trying to do. And Bill and I had been a battery since 1963 at Albuquerque. And so when we got into about, oftentimes when you have a no-hitter or a perfect game going, you don't realize it's gone until you look at the scoreboard in the 5th or 6th inning and there's nothing but zeros in the hit column for the opposition. But in Bill's case, we talked in the dugout about what he would like to do and what I thought we should try to do as we were trying to, solidify the no-hitter. So that was really going against tradition in baseball. And later on, I caught another no-hitter of Nolan Ryan's, and we also on that one definitely talked about what we're going to try to do to get through the end of the game without giving up the hit.
Well, let's jump back to 65 for a second, because Koufax's perfect game. And one of the things you and I have talked about before is how much tension is there on, everybody talks about the pitcher. How much tension is there on you behind the plate, not only to call the game, but not to make a mistake?
Whoa, boy, I tell you think about it all the time. A lot of people, in fact, I got to tell you a quick story leading up to the answer to this. Having caught that perfect game, I got a wire from Ray Shaw, the great Hall of Fame catcher from the old Black Sox. And he had caught no-hitters, and he sent a wire saying that the catcher never got enough credit. So he would wire somebody who had been fortunate enough to be a catcher in a no-hitter. I thought that was really interesting. But when you think about no-hitters, period, they are difficult on everybody on the field, but especially a perfect game. If you're aware, and sometimes you're not aware that it's a perfect game, because nobody's supposedly talking in the dugout. But in Sandy's case, he was so special that every time he went out on the mound, we thought he might pitch a no-hitter. Well, in that game against the Cubs, he missed giving up a first-inning double to second baseman of the Cubs, and it went just foul. So then for the rest of that game, he was in complete control. He didn't have a real good curveball early, but that puts pressure on the catcher. because obviously you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to make an error. You don't want to not jump on a ball that's chopped in front of the plate. And you don't want to go against what he feels confident in throwing at a particular time. You know, for an example, in the last 2 innings, he struck all 6 batters out. And I, as a catcher, said, I'm not going to screw this up if I can help it. So I only called one curveball in the last 2 innings, and it was to Joey Amalfitano only because Joey had beaten us with the Cubs on pinch hits on first ball fast twice before that season, that 65 season. So I immediately said, there's no way I'm going to call a fastball with this one, but it'll be the only curve that I end up calling. Called the curveball, and he fouled it into the dirt, and it almost went fair, but I'm so gunned up. I somehow got the ball before it went fair. And maybe that's good because who knows where I would have thrown it for all intents and purposes. But you really feel it. In one of these no-hitters, I got to, hey, Don, it was interesting. I had a long sleeves undershirt on. When I saw pictures at the end of the game, you wouldn't have known it. I had them pushed up underneath the uniform sleeves. That's how far back. That's where the nerves are taking over, I think.
And then you get traded. You get traded from the Dodgers over to the California Angels, and you step up with another great pitcher. And I know you never like to talk about who's the better pitcher of all of that. I don't want to skip Bob Gibson. He was a great pitcher, but not involved in this conversation. But when you caught Nolan Ryan on May 15th, 1973, he had the ball all over the place. Tell us about that no-hitter.
Well, that was interesting. That was in Kansas City. He had not had, this obviously had not had a no-hitter before this. And we had worked he came over to us from a trade with the Mets in 72. And he and I did a lot of messing around with his delivery, and I brought some of the things I had learned from Koufax and Drysdale and Sutton and those guys with the Dodgers, and we tried him with Nolan. Well, this was a time that he put it together. But interestingly enough, in the no-hitter at Kansas City, Nolan had a habit of tapping the top of the rubber with his right foot. When you see a pitcher start with his foot on the rubber. And nowadays you see him a lot differently. They almost look like they're taking a stretch position all the time. Mm-hmm. But Nolan would tap the top of the rubber as he was making his turn. And Jack McKeon was the manager, and he said that was against the rules, so he caused the umpires to question whether it was a legal move or not. Well, after the no-hitter, they dropped it, and there was no need to say anything. But I think it spurred Nolan on even. And here was a man, he could throw the ball. The radar guns are so different nowadays, and they talk about so many guys throwing over 100 miles an hour. In those days, he didn't have many guys throwing over 100. In fact, there weren't a whole lot throwing over 90. But Nolan Ryan could throw so hard that it was incredible. He had a pitch that you probably never even heard of. It's called a dry spitter. Now, you've heard of the spitball. That started with saliva on the ball and ended up with Vaseline and that type of stuff. A dry spitter is a fastball that is choked off because the pitcher is trying to throw it too hard. Well, Nolan could throw it like you couldn't believe. And invariably, with a runner on third base, he'd want to get more on the ball than on any other pitch, and he would throw one of those, and the bottom would fall out of it. So you as a catcher, you're kind of defending the area like a hockey goalie. You give him the target, and then you just say, boy, I hope I can catch this thing, because if he lets one rip down in the zone, he could kill you. He threw so hard. But as it turned out, the last out of the game was Amos Otis hit a long fly ball to right field, and we had a real good defensive outfitter in Ken Berry. I don't know if you remember, he won a Gold Glove at least once for the White Sox. Well, with the Angels, he played center field, but in this particular game, he went in defensively in right field. He ended up catching the ball up against the actual fence where the bullpen was. And boy, I tell you, when Otis hit that ball, I jumped straight up in the air. I thought, oh, no, not now. Last hitter, last pitch. And that was Nolan's first one.
Wow. Jeff, last question before we let you go, and we talked to Larry Bow about this 2 weeks ago. Some of the new rules, and now they've changed. Even now, I see where in the minor leagues, you and I chatted about it. They're going to move the mound back a foot. I mean, you can't do it with you or a catcher. You can't. You have to leave an alleyway for the guy to get in. You can't have a play at second base where you break it up. What do you think about these new rules?
Well, I didn't like the one with the catcher because there's been times when guys like Lou Brock would steal on us at will. And if I had a shot on him at the plate on the tag play, I was going to make it and pay for those embarrassing times that he kept stealing bases on us. But nowadays you can't do that. To throw the catcher out of the game, you can't block the plate. Well, that's part of the fun part of the catching position is to you made sure you know who the base runner was. If you had Pete Rose or Tommy Agee or Don Bell at second base, you'd say, if there's a base hit to the outfield, the throw's coming home, you better be ready because the locomotives are coming. But you can't even do that now. You're afraid to even get in position to catch your left foot on the edge of the plate. I don't like that. I know why they did it. They put it in because the giant catcher had gotten hurt, and he was a top hitter. Yeah, Posey. That's right. Yeah, but I don't know about this moving the mound back either. That's in I think it was 68 was when Gibson had that unbelievable earned run average, and Drysdale had that shutout streak at 58 2/3. Mm-hmm. They lowered the mound, and it changed the pitching. Can you imagine that they pushed the mound back after all these years? I can't picture that.
We'll leave it right there, Jeff. And I never did get to Drysdale and that very controversial play with the Dodgers on his consecutive. Next time you join us, we'll start off with Drysdale and that consecutive scoreless inning streak was, I think, one of the great umpire calls of all time to have the courage to make that call. But, Jeff, thank you so much. I said we keep you on for 20. We kept you on for more. We'll get together again real soon. Thanks so much.
You guys.